Chapter 4694. Of course I remember, Aou replied calmly. You swore a dragon oath in front of Father that you would never lay a hand on your brother. You would rather give up the position of Dragon Palace of the West Sea for your brotherhood. That's right. I still remember what happened that day. However, I never expected that the first person to raise the butcher's knife against me would not be the dragon clan of the heavenly abode, but my dearest second brother. It's not that you didn't think about it, it's that you didn't dare to think about it. Aou sneered. At that time, Father was already in a terrible mood. We didn't dare to make Father unhappy. However, no one was as bold as you to jump out and swear a dragon oath. Do you know how many princes you have offended with that dragon oath of yours? Old Seventh even mocked you in front of me and eldest brother. If he were to lay a hand on you, would you still remember your dragon oath? So, Aou Ying's face was as cold as ice. Are you testing me on behalf of Old Seventh? Just as Aou Ying said that, he suddenly swung his dragon body. His dragon horn glowed as it pierced towards Aou's dragon body at lightning speed. Boom! There was a loud explosion as the light from the dragon horn swept through thousands of feet of space. The knots of light were like candlelight being extinguished by a strong wind. Even the dragon's slaying threads were like broken spiderwebs floating in the air. Where the dragon horn landed, Aou's dragon body shattered into pieces. Pieces of greenish-brown boulders flew into the sky. Ha ha, Old Third, this is the dragon array. Do you think I will face you head-on? Aou's voice sounded from another direction. His dragon body naturally appeared in the sky. Roar! Roar! Aou Ying seemed to have used some secret technique of the dragon clan. After his dragon horn dimmed, the dragon chi around him was quickly withdrawn. At the same time, the threads that had been swept away earlier strangely appeared in the wind again. They were like entangling threads of love that silently fell. Aou Ying was the same as the other dragons. Although huge dragon runes appeared on the dragon scales where the thin thread landed, trying to block it, sizzling sounds could be heard as the thin thread sank into the scales. Aou Ying could not help but cry out in pain as the huge dragon tail swung wildly in the wave reef. Damn it! Aou Ying opened his dragon's mouth and spat out a mouthful of dragon's breath. Terrifying yuan qi descended from the sky and struck the light knots and thin threads that had quietly appeared. Unfortunately, neither the dragon's breath nor the yuan qi could destroy them. Instead, the thin threads became even clearer. Bone-splintering silk? Aou Ying's eyes were filled with hatred as he roared loudly, seemingly unwilling to accept this. Aou, you actually used the bone-splintering silk to kill your own brother? I'm really disappointed in you. Hee, disappointed? You've been disappointed in so many things. Aou sneered. If you were in my shoes, would you be able to guarantee your dragon oath? Can you guarantee that you won't attack the other brothers? All right. Aou Ying shouted. Since you've already made the first move, then this king's dragon oath has naturally lost its effect. Don't blame this king for not showing mercy. At this point in time, how can there be any mercy left? Aou Ying, you're thinking too much. Aou was not in a hurry as he spoke slowly. However, the dragon crown on Aou Ying's dragon head suddenly cracked inch by inch and a ruby-like jade seal was revealed. Once the jade seal was revealed, it immediately emitted sparks. The sparks landed in the air and created extremely hot ripples. Red Marquis Seal! Aou saw the jade seal and could not help but be shocked. He shouted, The red Marquis seal that was stolen from my West Sea Dragon Palace for 10,000 years is actually in your hands? You can go to hell! Aou Ying did not answer Aou. His dragon horn emitted a brilliant light again as he activated the red Marquis seal. A scorching flame soared into the sky and instantly enveloped the surrounding 50 kilometers. Within the flame, not only did the light knot and thin threads disappear, even the frozen surface of the sea melted instantly. What was even more terrifying was that the rocks of the Lingbo Reef turned into molten iron in the flame. Damn it! Aou was panic-stricken. His body appeared in another direction. The void and the dragon's scales had already lit up with thin strands of fire. Ha ha ha, Aou, do you know what it means to go for wool and come home shorn? Aoing laughed maniacally as his dragon body regained its vitality. Just as he was about to pounce at Aou, something strange happened. Within the slightly pitch-black flames, a sharp point that was hundreds of feet long suddenly flashed. There was also a layer of flames around the sharp point. The flames blocked Aoying's yuan psyche. When blood splattered, the sharp point easily stabbed into Aoying's dragon body. The dragon aura around Aoying rapidly dissipated. Furthermore, the red marquee seal above Aoying's head emitted a decadent aura. In the surrounding space, the invincible flames immediately disappeared. Who? Aoying's dragon claw clawed back, wanting to grab the triple chestnut-shaped sharp point. However, where his dragon claw landed, the sharp point emitted a cold light and blocked his dragon claw. Aoing roared helplessly as his dragon body tumbled in the sky. An indescribable misery appeared in his eyes as his roar of disbelief resounded throughout the Lingbo Reef. I know! This is St. John's dragon breaking all! Aou, oh Aou, you actually dared to lure the Saint River Dragon clan from the Western Paradise into my West Sea. At this moment there was a loud boom. Not far away, under the layer of ice that had already melted, a 5-colored flood dragon soared into the sky. That flood dragon landed in midair and smiled faintly. Although I am the young master of St. John, I am also the prince consort of the West Sea Dragon Palace. If something happens to our West Sea Dragon Palace, as the prince consort, how can I just stand by and watch? Jing Qing. Aoing screamed crazily. I will not let you off even if I become a ghost, much less Ao Xian. Don't worry, you won't become a ghost. Ao Xian won't come to the West Sea either. The young master of the Saint River Dragon clan, Jing Qing, smiled faintly. He looked quite charming. When he looked at Aou again, his previous panic immediately disappeared. He sneered. Aoing, don't think that no dragon clan can do anything to you just because you have the red marquee seal. I already knew that the red marquee seal was in your hands. However, at this point, something strange happened again. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please subscribe to support it at Qidian. Vote for it, give it as a reward, and thank you for all forms of support. Chapter 4695. Unfortunately, before Aou could finish his sentence, Aou's voice suddenly became high-pitched. A scream came from his mouth. Looking at his dragon body that had not completely extinguished the flames, a dragon piercing all that was exactly the same as the one on Aoying's body appeared. At this time, the dragon piercing all rushed out from the bottom of the sea and pierced deeply into Aou's heart. How is this possible? Aou's face was filled with disbelief. He looked at Aoying's pain, and then looked at the dragon piercing all on his dragon body. He roared, How can there be 2 dragon piercing alls? Jing Qing you! Boom! At this time, there was another roar. A dragon with green fog around her body rushed out from the bottom of the sea. The dragon's body looked a little petite. It was obviously a female dragon. Ao Xian? Aou looked at the female dragon and cried out. You didn't go! However, at this moment, Aou seemed to have understood something no matter how foolish he was. Sure enough, Aoing, who was in extreme pain earlier, suddenly stopped his rolling dragon body in the sky. With a cold smile on his face, he said, Yes, big sister was going to attack old Seven, but she was worried about little brother and specially came to take a look. Damn it! Aou shouted. He used his dragon claws to point at Aoing, Jing Qing and Ao Xian in disbelief. He said, I thought I was smart, and my plan was unparalleled in the West Sea. But after so many calculations, I only realize now that I am the stupid one. I am the prey of others. You are really stupid. Aoing laughed heartily. For an ambush like the Lingbo Reef, if it wasn't for this king's intention, who would really come to this dangerous reef for no reason to patrol? If I didn't care about my dragon oath, Why would I let you make the first move? Now that this king's dragon vow hasn't been broken, and your life is gone, this king is the biggest winner. Aou felt his dragon body getting colder and colder. He knew that he was about to die, but he was really unwilling. He stared at Aou and said word by word, Big sister, are you really so heartless? Aou, don't blame Big sister, Aou said in a low voice. The West Sea is no longer a paradise. All the powers that have the strength to compete have come. I am the princess of the West Sea Dragon Palace. I also have the qualifications. Furthermore, didn't you make a move on third brother first? Ha, Aouing, oh Aouing. Aou did not wait for Aou to finish speaking as he laughed out loud. He looked at the dragon breaking all that had already entered his dragon body and said, Don't say that I'm an idiot. Aren't you an idiot too? Jing Qing immediately moved away from Aouing and laughed. Aou, you're about to die. Don't try to sow discord between us, haha, don't worry, big brother-in-law. Aouing laughed and pulled out the dragon breaking all from his body. He said, How can I not believe big brother-in-law? However, just as his dragon claw landed on the dragon breaking all, boom! The dragon breaking all emitted a blinding light. The entire dragon breaking all suddenly expanded and a sharp light appeared from the dragon breaking all. It pierced into Aou dragon body like a hot knife through butter. The dragon breaking all was so powerful that it actually pushed Aou huge dragon body down 1,000 feet and nailed him onto a huge rock. Roar! Aou dragon body was extremely convulsing as he shook with all his might. His roar was also filled with confusion. How did this become the real dragon breaking all? Third brother. Aou's faint voice sounded from afar. You wanted to find a replica of the dragon breaking all to fool Aou. However, there is no such replica in this world. Thus, Big Sister had no choice but to give you a real dragon breaking all. Because Saint Zhang's dragon breaking all is a pair of male and female. Ha ha ha! Aou laughed until tears flowed down his face. Although he was exhaling more than he was inhaling, he still forced himself to shout. Aouing, do you still remember what your dragon oath was? If you attack your own brother, you will be nailed to death on the West Sea's rock. Ha ha ha, the heavens are fair. Aouing, you asked me just now. Is it time for me to ask you now? Do you know what it means to lift a rock and smash it on your own feet? Do you know what it means to invite a wolf into the house? Do you know what it means to? Unfortunately, as he spoke, Aou had already collapsed and no longer made a sound. Aou was dead and Aouing also stopped struggling. This was because the dragon breaking all had nailed him onto the rock. His life was flowing away like the seawater being washed away by the Lingbo reef. He lifted his dragon head helplessly and said weakly, Big sister, You. However, other than these few words, he could not say anything else. This ambush on the Lingbo reef was his plan. He had bet everything on it. However, he did not expect that he would still lose. Third brother. You must remember, in your next life, don't trust any dragon, Aou said calmly. Furthermore, any oath. When the price is high enough, it will become poison. You have made a lot of promises to Big Sister, but are these promises comparable to the Dragon Emperor of the West Sea Dragon Palace? Alright, I have nothing to say. Aouing lifted his head with difficulty. At this moment, within the dragon array, the dragons and sea tribes of the Saint River had already stepped out. These dragons and sea tribes raised their butcher's knives and madly attacked the West Sea tribes. I think, Aouing continued, it won't be long before the news of me and second brother killing each other reaches the West Sea Dragon Palace. Big sister and brother-in-law will be able to rightfully return to the West Sea. How could you possibly kill each other? Jing Qing smiled and said, The 9 princes of the West Sea are very close to each other. When you patrol the West Sea, you will naturally fall into the ambush of the dragons of the Dongtian River. Haha, this framing. You are really good at it. Aouing could not help but laugh. That Jiang Hong of the Dongtian River wanted to get her hands on the West Sea. Now, even if she wants to clear her name. Before Aoyu could finish his sentence. Roar! Another dragon's roar came from the sky far away. Then, a powerful yuanshan swept across the clouds. At the same time, a cold voice sounded. Hee, who said that I can't clear my name? Jiang Hong? Ao Xian, who had been calm all this time, suddenly had a huge change in expression. She exclaimed in a daze. We meet again, Princess Ao! Jiang Hong looked at Ao Xian's panic with interest and smiled slightly. P.S. Fellow cultivators who like this book, please subscribe to it at Qidian. Vote for it, vote for it, vote for it, donate it, and thank you for all your support. Chapter 4696. The five-colored flood dragon Jingqing was very confused. He shouted in surprise. You! Why are you here? Before I set up the array, I had already searched the entire sea region. Could it be that you have been following us all along? You think you can find me with your 7th grade elemental power? Jiang Hong snorted in disdain. Besides, I was just flying past the Lingbo Reef and happened to see your dirty business. Otherwise, who would care about you little loaches? Don't you think so, Princess Ao? Damn it! Ao Xian cursed in her heart, but she did not dare to show her anger on her face. She smiled and said, Jiang Hong, we came all the way to the West Sea. We know very well why. Since you have seen it, I will not hide it from you. What do you want from the Dongtian River? Tell us. We, the same Jiang, are willing to make a deal with you. Hee, the deal is easy. Jiang Hong smiled and waved her dragon claws. However, before the deal, I would like to ask Princess Ao. Between you and me, who is the little loach? Who is only fit to swim in the stinky river? Ao Xian clenched her teeth and did not say anything. She knew very well that she had insulted Jiang Hong with those words in the past. Now Jiang Hong had returned it to her. How could she answer? Senior Jiang, Ao Xian whispered pitifully. You are already an 8th grade elemental power dragon. Why do you have to lower yourself to my level? Back then, I was just blinded by lard. That's why. Say it. Between you and me, who is the little loach that swims in the stinky river? Jiang Hong was not moved at all. Ao Xian glanced at Jingqing and then at Aoing, who was on the verge of death but still forced herself to watch the show. She gritted her teeth and answered, Of course it is me. Ao Xian, you can't even finish your sentence? Why can't I understand what you are saying? Jiang Hong asked Ao Xian as she recalled the scene of her being humiliated that day. Yes, senior. Junior Ao Xian is that little loach that is only fit to swim in the smelly sewers. Ao Xian clearly remembered Jiang Hong's reply that day. She also replied word by word. At least you can see your true colors clearly. Not bad, not bad. You will have a bright future. Jiang Hong smiled and said, However, before we discuss your future, I want to ask again. What happened on the Liao River of the hidden Immortal continent? Who leaked the whereabouts of the Heavenly River lineage to the North Sea Dragon Palace? This? When Ao Xian heard this, her expression changed drastically. She did not hesitate to point at Aoing and said, Senior Jiang, that was Ao Ying's doing. Junior has already married into Sage Jiang. How could I have information about Liao Jiang of hidden Immortal continent? You! Aoing was furious. Just as he was about to retort, a large amount of dragon blood seeped out of the dragon, breaking all. Aoing howled a few times and died. Haha, this is called dead men tell no tales. Jiang Hong laughed loudly and said. Ao Xian's expression calmed down, and she smiled. Senior is wise, this was done by you, Sage Jiangji. Unfortunately, before Ao Xian could finish, another thunderous dragon roar was heard. Ao Zhan descended from the sky from another direction. Ao Zhan? Jingqing looked as if he had seen a ghost. His dragon body shook. You! Why are you here too? Why can't I be here? Ao Zhan smiled. If I didn't come, how could I see what Sage Jiangji and his dragon husband did? How could I see Princess Ao killing her two younger brothers in order to seize the dragon throne of the West Sea Dragon Palace? If I didn't come, how could I expose Princess Ao's secret to the North Sea Dragon Palace? You! What evidence do you have? Ao Xian gritted her teeth and said again. Ao Zhan raised his right claw and waved it. I don't need any evidence. I just need to prove that I was the dragon guard of the East Sea. Damn it! Ao Xian cursed in a low voice. She didn't know how to refute because she knew clearly that the dragon guards of the East Sea Dragon Palace were responsible for the information of the East Sea Dragon Palace and the safety of the princes. He could easily find out what she did back then. Boom! Jiang Hong stretched out his dragon claw, and in a loud roar, a golden dragon claw shadow that was hundreds of feet long broke through the air. It leaped across the few miles of space and grabbed Ao Xian's dragon body. Ao Xian naturally wouldn't sit still and wait for death. She hurriedly swung her dragon tail and pointed at the dragon, breaking all on Ao Yu's body at the same time, and pounced on Jiang Hong. Pff. Jiang Hong's dragon claws tore apart the dragon formation and landed on Ao Xian's violent dragon tail. Two muffled sounds rang out. Ao! What followed was Ao Xian's blood-curdling screams. Jiang Hong's dragon claws dug deeply into Ao Xian's dragon tail, tearing apart the dragon's scales. That dragon tail, which was indestructible to ordinary humans, was even torn apart by Jiang Hong's claws. Dragon breaking all? It's just a piece of scrap metal in your hands. Seeing the dragon breaking through the air, Jiang Hong sneered. He opened his mouth and spat out a dragon breath, which blocked the dragon breaking all a few miles away. No matter how hard the dragon breaking all struggled, it couldn't move forward even half an inch. I'll fight you to the death! Jing Qing roared and pounced on Ao Zhan crazily. Ao Zhan didn't dare to be as casual as Jiang Hong. He roared and urged his dragon body to meet Jing Qing's attack head-on. For a moment, the originally cold and cheerless Lingbo Reef once again flared up. Waves of water soared into the sky like pillars, and the airwaves tore apart the clouds in the sky. The battle between the two enormous dragons even smashed many reefs into pieces. Although Ao Zhan had gained a lot of benefits, he had only cultivated for a short period of time. He was already at a disadvantage in the time it took to eat a meal. Not only was his dragon body torn apart, even his dragon head was damaged a little. However, Jiang Hong, who had already injured Ao Xian, wasn't in a hurry to help. She just watched indifferently. Senior Jiang. Ao Xian understood that although there were many dragons and sea tribes on the Lingbo Reef, only Jiang Hong could control the situation. She hurriedly whispered, You are the leader of the Heavenly Paradise River. If you spare this junior, I, Senior Jiang, will follow your lead. Moreover, this junior will definitely hand over the dragon throne of the West Sea Dragon Palace. Of course, if you are willing, this junior can help you kill Ao Zhan. Take his forces. Humph. Jiang Hong snorted and said, Why do I need you to interfere with what I want to do? He, Senior, this junior knows your difficulties. Ao Xian chuckled and said, You are a disciple of the Fortune Gate, and this Ao Zhan is familiar with Dao Master Xiao. If I'm not mistaken, Dao Master Xiao has already promised the dragon throne of the West Sea Dragon Palace to Ao Zhan. Although Ao Zhan has the bloodline of the Hui tribe's patriarch, his strength is still weak. How can he compare to your great talent and strategy? If it's inconvenient for you to make a move, this junior can do it for you. Moreover, today is a good opportunity. Jiang Hong's expression changed slightly when she heard what Ao Xian said. She actually raised her dragon claw. When Ao Xian saw this, she immediately knew that she had hit Jiang Hong's sore spot. She wanted to add more oil to the fire. Unfortunately, before she could say another word, Jiang Hong let out a sinister laugh. With a boom, her dragon claw smashed onto Ao Xian's dragon head, knocking Ao Xian onto the reef. She then said, Ao Xian, if I want to do something, I will naturally do it. I don't need you to teach me. Roar! Jiang Hong swung her dragon tail. Boom! Jing Qing, who was about to attack Ao Zhan again, was sent flying. His dragon body was badly mutilated. Kill! Jiang Hong roared and spat out a mouthful of dragon breath. The dragon breath rushed into the sky and turned into the image of a dragon bearing its fangs and brandishing its claws. Kill! From the void thousands of miles away, a dozen dragons from the heavenly abode river tore through the air and pounced on Lingbo Reef. The leading dragon roared and shouted. Reporting to Princess, the heavenly abode river has just received orders and is rushing here. Jiang Hong nodded coldly and said, There's no need to wait for them. You can all cough. Before Jiang Hong could finish speaking, a familiar coughing sound rang in her ears. Master? When Jiang Hong heard the cough, her face was filled with joy. However, a moment later, her eyes flashed with panic. When she raised her head to look at the source of the sound, she saw a streak of light flying through the night sky like a shooting star. The holy heavenly horse spread its wings, carrying the beautiful Princess Xia and the charming Xiao Hua as it descended. The grand ascension stage aura rushed down from the sky like a tsunami. Not to mention the sea tribes, even the hundreds of dragons trembled and fell to the ground uncontrollably. No one dared to move. Disciple greets Master. Jiang Hong's face was filled with respect. She transformed into her human form and knelt in midair. We greet Sect Master! Although the Grotto Heaven River Dragon tribe hadn't returned to the soaring Dragon Mountain range, they had already received news from the Fortune Gate. They transformed into their human forms and knelt in midair to greet Ao Zhan. Ao Zhan was injured, but he grimaced in pain and bowed. Junior greets Master Long. The West Sea Dragon tribe, the Sage River Dragon tribe, and the Sea tribes were all trembling in fear, not daring to raise their voices. Ao Xian and Jing Qing's faces were pale as they looked at each other. The two dragons looked at each other and knelt down in the air, shouting, Greetings, Dragon Master Xiao! The Pegasus flying carriage stopped in the sky. Xiao Hua withdrew his aura and brought Princess Xia down. His gaze swept across the crowd of dragons and finally landed on Jiang Hong and Ao Zhan. He waved his sleeves and said, Get up! Yes, Master! Jiang Hong got up and looked at Princess Xia. She bowed respectfully again and said, Ninth Princess! P.S. It's the Xianxia battle strength list again. Then, let's fight. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please subscribe to it at Qidian, vote for it, give it a tip, and thank you for all your support. Chapter 4697. No need to be so courteous. Princess Xia saw that Jiang Hong's greeting was either too far nor too close, and she could see Jiang Hong's cautiousness and meticulousness. Ao Zhan also flew over, smiling as he greeted. This one greets Princess Xia. You're too polite. Princess Xia smiled and nodded. Why did Master suddenly come to the West Sea? Before Xiao Hua could speak, Jiang Hong hurriedly asked. This disciple received Lu Yi's order and hurriedly led the Holy Paradise River's subordinates to the West Sea. Moreover, this disciple heard that our Fortune Gate's first batch of disciples were only close to the West Sea's border, and you weren't there. Oh, this disciple understands. Is Master looking for a place for our Fortune Gate to settle down? To be honest with Master, this disciple already has a plan in mind, and this disciple is heading there to investigate. If Master is free, this disciple can go with this disciple to take a look. Seeing Jiang Hong speaking one sentence after another, it is obvious that she is somewhat guilty. Xiao Hua wants to berate her a few words, but thinking of what he saw just now, and the sound transmission between Jiang Hong and Ao Xian, Jiang Hong indeed did not do anything wrong. The reason why Jiang Hong felt guilty was because she understood that Xiao Hua didn't intend to make him the master of the West Sea. Moreover, Jiang Hong also faintly knew that Xiao Hua wanted the little white dragon to be the master of the West Sea. Since Xiao Hua had made such a decision, Jiang Hong rashly coming to the West Sea was clearly looking down on Xiao Hua's authority, and not listening to his orders. Looking at Jiang Hong and the Holy Paradise River's dragon tribe, Xiaohua had an indescribable feeling in his heart. Everything proved that Jiang Hong was an excellent dragon tribe leader. She had the means and the ability to unify the West Sea, and was qualified to sit on the West Sea Dragon Palace's dragon throne. Unfortunately, Jiang Hong was a female dragon. She did not have the West Sea Fire Dragon soul, nor did she have the West Sea Dragon throne. She could only rely on the Fortune Gate and Xiaohua. Looking at Xiao Bai, Xiaohua didn't know if Xiao Bai had the ability to lead the West Sea's dragon tribe. However, Xiao Bai had the Fire Dragon soul, and now he had the West Sea Dragon throne. Most importantly, Xiao Bai had the seven-colored sea god seashell and Xiaohua's approval. With this comparison, Xiaohua felt a little regretful. Of course, he had to give the West Sea Dragon throne to the little white dragon. Because the little white dragon might not be a good leader, just like how he might not be a good Fortune Gate chief. Alas, this is the fate of the heavenly Tao! Xiaohua sighed inwardly. He looked at the restless Jiang Hong and said, Master came to the West Sea for another matter. The matter of our Fortune Gate's foundation will be decided by you and Lu Yi. He is now in charge of the Fortune Gate's affairs. If you have any ideas, you can discuss them with him. Also, if there's anything your clan needs, feel free to inform Lu Yi. Seeing Xiaohua's amiable tone, no different from before, Jiang Hong heaved a long sigh of relief. However, before she could speak, a fierce expression flashed in Xiaohua's eyes, and he swept the members of the dragon clan with his gaze before he said coldly, I've seen everything that all of you have done. I'm also aware of how Ao Ying and Ao Yu died. Jiang Hong, you've done well. You didn't fall for Ao Xian's bewitchment. This old man is relieved. Master! Jiang Hong was so frightened that she broke out in cold sweat. She hurriedly knelt down and said, Disciple has always engraved Master's teachings in her heart. Although Disciple has some selfish thoughts, Disciple knows what to do when it comes to matters of principle. And get up. Xiaohua nodded. How do you plan to deal with the Sage River Dragon clan? Kill. Jiang Hong said without hiding anything. The Sage River Dragon clan belongs to the Western Paradise world. They actually dared to touch the West Sea, Jiang Hong. Jing Qing hurriedly shouted. Your Paradise River belongs to the hidden Immortal mainland. How dare you touch the West Sea? Ao Xian's expression changed when she heard that. She quickly looked at Xiaohua. As expected, Xiaohua smiled leisurely and said, Because our Fortune Gate wants to expand in the West Sea in the future, the Paradise River Dragon clan came to the West Sea. Jiang Hong, these two members of the Dragon clan, and the Sage River Dragon clan, there's no need to kill them. Take them to the West Sea Dragon Palace. I'm going to meet the Dragon Master of the Dragon Island. The situation in the West Sea is so chaotic. The two princes of the West Sea Dragon Palace were killed by the first princess. If our Fortune Gate doesn't stay in the West Sea Dragon Palace, wouldn't the West Sea Dragon Palace fall into chaos? Jiang Hong was overjoyed when she heard that. She understood that the West Sea Dragon Palace was controlled by the Dragon Island and the Eastern Sea Dragon Palace. No one could interfere. The Fortune Gate happened to see the internal strife in the West Sea Dragon Palace. This was the perfect opportunity and reason to insert the Fortune Gate's forces into the West Sea Dragon Palace. In that case, it was better for Ao Xian and Jing Qing to be alive. He could even use these two members of the Dragon clan to extend his hand into the Sage River Dragon clan. Yes, Master. Jiang Hong replied. On the distant sea, there were already waves rising to the sky. It should be the Paradise River Dragon clan coming over. Ao Xian and Jing Qing heaved a sigh of relief when they heard that. Although they didn't know whether they would live or die in the West Sea Dragon Palace, at least they didn't have to die for now. Wang wang! At this time, within 1,000 li, there was another rumbling sound. Countless mayfly insects flew out from the void as if they had smelled something fishy. These mayfly insects were of different sizes, and the biggest one was more than 100 zhang tall. Do you see that? Xiaohua sneered, and his voice rumbled like thunder. This is the biggest enemy our 3 continents and 3 rivers and 4 seas are facing. These strange insects are called mayflies, and they have the power to destroy the world. All of us venerables gathered at the Nacre Lake to discuss how to exterminate these strange insects. However, even our gathering was disrupted by these mayfly insects. You people don't know self-respect, you don't know righteousness, and you're still looking for small benefits. What's the meaning of this? Master, Jiang Hong hurriedly called out. Disciple has long heard about the power of these mayfly insects. Seeing them today, they are indeed powerful. Should we avoid them or exterminate them? Exterminate them, Xiaohua said without hesitation. These mayfly insects not only devour dragons with cultivation, but also ordinary members of the sea. If you don't exterminate them, they will raise the West Sea to the ground. Everyone, exterminate these mayfly insects. Jiang Hong didn't say anything else after hearing that. She waved her dragon claws, and while commanding the dragons of the heavenly abode, she rushed into the swarm of mayfly insects. Saints of the Jiang clan, West Sea Dragon Palace, attack as well! Xiaohua ordered indifferently. Yes, Junior understands. Ao Xian and Jing Qing knew that this was a good opportunity to redeem themselves. After receiving the order, they immediately commanded the saints of the Jiang clan to rush into the swarm of mayfly insects. Even with Xiaohua and the other Taoist experts, the battle between the heavenly abode and the saints of the heavenly abode and the mayfly insects lasted for 3 days and 3 nights. Seeing the last mayfly insect explode under Xiaohua's punch, Jiang Hong and the other dragons of the heavenly abode could finally relax. Looking at the injuries all over her body, Jiang Hong smiled bitterly. She was no longer a member of the dragon clan who had a clear understanding of her own body. In this world, there were very few members of the demon clan who had a tougher body than the dragon clan. However, this kind of dragon clan body was as fragile as a piece of paper in front of the strange insect's hind legs. Every single scar on her body caused Jiang Hong to feel a lingering fear. Ever since she achieved great success in her cultivation, Jiang Hong had never suffered such heavy injuries. And today, if Xiaohua wasn't here, that several 100 feet long strange insect could really exterminate all the dragon clan members. The mayfly insects lived up to its name. Xiaohua released the netherworld origin power and collected the souls of the dead dragons and sea clans. Then, he said indifferently, "This old man hopes that today's battle will let you see the situation of the entire war clearly. This is the moment of life and death for our 3 continents. The importance of working together is far more important than the scheming between each other. Do you think the dragon throne of the West Sea Dragon Palace is easy to sit on? If you can't destroy the mayfly insects and bring peace to the West Sea, even if you sit on the dragon throne, you will still be overthrown by the other dragons." "Yes, this Junior understands," Ao Xian and the others replied in unison. "Let's go to the West Sea Dragon Palace," Xiaohua said with a wave of his hand. Naturally, going to the West Sea Dragon Palace wasn't just a day. Before Xiaohua and the others could get close, the Yiksha of the West Sea Dragon Palace had already seen the mighty Heavenly Abode River Clan. The Yiksha turned pale with fright and hurriedly dived into the sea to report. Xiaohua had already seen it. He smiled and ordered the disciples of the Jianghong sect to report. Boom, boom, boom. After a few moments, pillars of light shot into the sky and tore apart the dark clouds. Amidst the sounds of string instruments, several dragons flew out on the waves. The leading dragon's body was yellow. After seeing Xiaohua, he hurriedly transformed into human form. An old dragon with a bitter face and gray hair appeared. The old dragon bowed and said, "Junior Ao Su of the Gui clan greets Dragon Master Xiao." "Ao Su?" Xiaohua frowned. He looked up and down at this dragon with the strength of the lower 9th grade and asked curiously, "You're named after the earthly branch? I'm afraid you're also an elder of the Dragon Palace?" "Good, Dragon Master knows," Ao Su said with a smile. "This junior is not an elder of the Dragon Palace, but a second elder of the Dragon Palace." After saying that, seeing Xiaohua's confusion, he explained. "The 10 elders of the Dragon Palace are the heads of the 10 clans of the Dragon Island. They are named after the 10 heavenly stems. The 12 second elders of the Dragon Palace are named after the 12 earthly branches. They are responsible for the affairs of the Dragon Palace and report to the 10 elders of the Dragon Palace. Under the second elder, there are 60 deacons who are responsible for the miscellaneous matters of the Dragon Palace. They are named after the combination of the heavenly stems and earthly branches. The disappearance of the West Sea Dragon King and Dragon Throne is very important. The 9th elder of the Dragon Palace can't leave the Dragon Island for a long time, so he sent me to the West Sea Dragon Palace to represent the Dragon Island to assist the 3 Sea Dragon Kings and deal with the aftermath. So that's how it is. Xiaohua understood and said with a smile. Although this Xiao is the Dragon Master of the Dragon Island, I still don't know much about the Dragon Island. Please forgive me. Dragon Master will go to the Dragon Island more in the future. You'll naturally understand, Aosu said with a smile. Junior Aoxian of the East Sea greets Dragon Master Xiao. Beside Aosu, a tall and valiant dragon hurriedly stepped forward and bowed. P.S. Xianxia battle strength list again. Then, let's fight. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please go to Qidian to subscribe to support, vote a monthly vote, vote a recommendation vote, bookmark, tip. Thank you for all forms of support. Chapter 4698. I just saw your father's martial prowess at the Jade Pool meeting, and now I see your martial prowess again. I'm really surprised. Why does the heavens favor your East Sea Dragon Palace? Each generation is stronger than the previous. Xiaohua smiled and helped Aoxiang up, praising him. Aoxiang was very humble. He smiled and said, Senior, you flatter me. How can I compare to my father's political and martial prowess? After Aoxiang saw Xiaohua, a fat dragon hurriedly stepped forward and bowed. Junior Aoqian from the West Sea greets Dragon Master Xiao. Looking at this dragon with a pair of fish eyes, Xiaohua sighed inwardly. He nodded and said, This old man hasn't seen you before, but just now in front of Lingbo Reef, I heard your name. Oh? Who did Dragon Master hear about me in front of the Lingbo Reef? Aoqian's face was full of joy, as if it was an honor for Xiaohua to hear his name. He hurriedly asked. There are a lot of dragons talking about you, Xiaohua said meaningfully. Aoyu, Aoing, Aoxian, and Jingqing. When Xiaohua mentioned Aoyu and Aoing, Aosu and Aoxian did not think much of it. But when Xiaohua called out the name of the Saint River Dragon race, the 2 dragons turned pale with fright. They looked at each other, as if they had thought of something. Looking at Aoqian again, his face was actually blurred. He asked curiously, What? Big sister actually returned to the West Sea? Why didn't she come to the West Sea Dragon Palace? Why did she go to the Lingbo Reef? Xiaohua didn't know whether Aoqian was really stupid or pretending to be stupid, but he had a deep impression of the dragon's cunning. He only nodded at Aosu and said, Let's talk about it after we enter the Dragon Palace. Yes, Dragon Master, please. Aosu didn't dare to neglect. He hurriedly bowed and asked Xiaohua to go first. At this time, Princess Zixia, accompanied by Jiang Hong, walked out from the group of dragons behind. When Aosu saw, he thought for a while, and also raised his hand with Aoxiang and Aoqian. Princess Zixia understood that her status with Xiaohua was not fixed. If she was the 9th princess of the Immortal Palace, the 2nd elder of the Dragon Island might not be so polite. Aosu raised his hand was also because of Xiaohua's face, so she didn't dare to be disrespectful. She smiled gracefully, and raised her hand to return the greeting. Aosu completed his etiquette, and ignored Princess Zixia. He hurriedly accompanied Xiaohua into the West Sea Dragon Palace. In his early years, Xiaohua had already walked through the West Sea Dragon Palace. However, at that time, his eyes were filled with half of the treasures in the West Sea Dragon Palace's treasury. He didn't look at the Dragon Palace at all, nor did he stay in the main hall for long. Today, as soon as he stepped into the main hall, he saw that the hall was overflowing with treasure light. It was oppressively magnificent, even more dazzling than the South Sea Dragon Palace. Master Long, please take a seat. Aosu respectfully gestured. Xiao Hua wanted to decline, but after thinking for a moment, he raised his hand and pushed the door above his head. Boom! A soaring dragon aura mixed with red light forced its way to the top of the hall. The Dragon Master's crimson dragon crown appeared above Xiao Hua's head. Seeing Xiao Hua take out the scarlet dragon crown, Ao Su was delighted. After all, the main seat in the main hall of the West Ocean Dragon Palace was the symbol of the dragon race's commander. It was inevitable that it would be inappropriate for a Dao sect disciple to sit on it. However, aside from the main seat, where else could Xiao Hua sit in the main hall? Now that Xiao Hua was wearing the scarlet dragon crown, even the true ruler of the West Sea would have to bow and salute him. Xiao Hua's arrival not only preserved the dignity of the human race's grand ascension stage, but also preserved the might of the dragon race. No one would have any doubts about Xiao Hua's arrival. Xiao Hua sat down. Ao Su, Ao Xiang, and Ao Qian also accompanied him at the side. The dragon generals and officials of the West Sea Dragon Palace also followed the prescribed order and stood in attendance. In the end, Princess Zixia, Jianghong, and Ao Zhan entered again. Princess Zixia sat in a guest seat in a corner of the hall, accompanied by 2 members of the dragon clan. I didn't know that Master Long had come to the West Sea Dragon Palace, so I didn't greet you. Please forgive me, Master Long, Ao Su said politely. May I ask why Master Long has come today? Xiao Hua smiled and replied politely. I had to go to Dragon Island to pay a visit to the Grand Elder, but I didn't know the way to Dragon Island, so I came to the West Sea Dragon Palace to disturb you. I didn't ask my disciples to notify you in advance. Upon hearing that Xiao Hua wanted to go to Dragon Island, both Ao Su and Ao Xiang heaved a long sigh of relief. Unfortunately, before they had a chance to speak, Xiao Hua continued. However, aside from this, I have another important matter to attend to, and I came to the West Sea Dragon Palace specifically. Ao Su's heart tightened, and he hurriedly smiled. May I ask if Master Long has anything to do with Wave Reef? Yes, that is indeed the case. Xiao Hua nodded and didn't explain any further. He raised his head and said, Jianhong, escort Ao Xian and Jingqing to the main hall, and bring Ao Ying and Ao Yu's corpses as well. What? Upon hearing this, Ao Qian flew up from the jade pillar he was sitting on and exclaimed, How could second brother and third brother? I only sent third brother to patrol Wave Reef. Second brother, he didn't even leave the West Sea Dragon Palace. Ao Su's face was gloomy, and his eyes flashed with anger. He glared at Ao Xiang fiercely. It was clearly the East Sea Dragon Palace's crown prince's idea to send the 4 princes out to patrol. He was kept in the dark. Ao Xiang's expression changed slightly, but he instantly calmed down. He was the one who came up with the idea, and Ao Qian was the one who made the decision. What did it have to do with him if something happened? Jianhong got up and flew out of the hall. Not long after, not only did she escort Ao Xian and Jingqing, but she also brought Ao Ying and Ao Yu's corpses to the main hall. She also brought the heavily injured Ao Shun, Ao Bai, and the rest of the West Sea Dragon clan to the main hall. Big sister, you. Ao Qian flew above the main hall and looked at Ao Xian in exasperation. He had a pained look on his face. Then, he landed beside the corpses of Ao Ying and Ao Yu. He hugged the corpses of the 2 giant dragons and cried, Second brother, third brother, it's all my fault. I shouldn't have sent you out to patrol. At this point, he suddenly realized something and hurriedly said to the outside of the hall, Quick, send 100,000 members of the Sea Clan to welcome 4th brother, 6th brother, and 7th brother. Don't let anything happen to them. Yes, Your Highness, your subordinate has received the order. Outside the palace door, a dragon general immediately responded and urged his dragon body to fly out. Seeing that the dragon general had left, Ao Qian stood at the entrance of the main hall and looked outside for a long time, like a parent waiting for their child to return. Xiao Hua sat on a huge jade chair and looked on indifferently. Although his figure didn't match the jade chair, the aura of the crimson dragon crown was like a mountain weighing down on the hearts of all the dragons, and no one dared to look directly at this human grand ascension stage being. First Crown Prince. Aosu waited for a moment before reminding. If I'm not mistaken, the 3 Crown Princes should be on their way back from their patrol. The West Sea is the foundation of the West Sea Dragon Palace, and since they're the Crown Princes of the West Sea Dragon Palace, they should be responsible for patrolling. Don't give up on eating just because of some other mishap. Yes, Dragon Envoy, you're right. Ao Qian replied in a low voice before silently turning around and saying, My West Sea Dragon Palace was very lively before. Father was handling government affairs on the Dragon Throne, and the 9 of us were playing around in the main hall. Now that I've lost 2 of my brothers, I'm a little flustered. At this point, Ao Qian bowed to Xiao Hua and said, Now that Dragon Master Xiao has come to the West Sea Dragon Palace, I'll have to ask Dragon Master Xiao to make the decision. I'm a little afraid to face reality. I'm an outsider, and it's not good for me to interfere too much in the affairs of the West Sea Dragon Palace. Xiao Hua replied with a smile. That day, the Dragon King of the East Sea, Ao Qian, specially reminded me. Therefore, this matter should be presided over by Ao Su, Dragon Envoy Ao. All right. Ao Su thought for a moment, raised his head to look at Ao Xiang, and replied, I'll preside over this matter with the East Sea Dragon Palace's Crown Prince. I'll listen to Dragon Envoy. Ao Xiang didn't dare to refuse and nodded in agreement. Then, Ao Su looked around and waved his hand to signal for most of the dragon generals and sea raced to leave, leaving only a few generals behind. Then, he ordered Ao Shun and Ao Bai to explain the situation. Ao Shun and Ao Bai naturally didn't dare to hide anything, and told him everything about the Lingbo Reef. Then, Ao Yu's subordinates also told him about their own experiences. Finally, Ao Su's face darkened. He looked at Ao Xian, suppressed the anger in his heart, and asked in a deep voice, Ao Xian, what they said just now is the truth. Ao Xian said in a low voice, That's right. Ao Su sighed and said, Sai, tell me how you discussed, how you schemed. Tell me everything in detail. Ao Xian had no choice at this time. She told him all the details of how she discussed with Ao Ing and how to kill Ao Yu. As for the truth, there was no proof. In the end, Ao Xian argued, I actually didn't have any other ideas, but because I couldn't stand Ao Ying's bewitchment, I did this. Killing Ao Ing was also Ao Ying's own bewitchment. Ao Su sneered, looked at Jing Qing and asked, Jing Qing, it seems that Saint Jiang has a big plan. If Dong Tian River can come to the West Sea, why can't Saint Jiang? Jing Qing sneered. As far as I know, the Red Land River Dragon tribe has come to the West Sea a long time ago. Ao Su wanted Jing Qing to confess, but looking at him, he was afraid that he wouldn't tell the truth. Ao Su thought for a moment and said, I can't make a decision on this matter, so I'll put you in the prison of the West Sea Dragon Palace first. I'll report the details to Dragon Island, and Ao Xiang will report to the East Sea Dragon Palace. We'll talk about it when there's news. After that, Ao Su looked at Xiao Hua respectfully and asked, Dragon Master, what do you think of this? Of course. Xiao Hua smiled and said, Dragon Master, you're fair. I'm relieved. That's good. Ao Su replied. This junior will order people to prepare the teleportation channel to Dragon Island. This junior has a duty and cannot accompany Master Long to Dragon Island. This matter is just right. Master Long, please pass on this junior's opinion and let the elders decide. P.S. Here's the Xianxia combat power list again. Then, let's fight. Fellow cultivators who like this book, please subscribe to it at Qidian, vote for it, give it a tip, and thank you for all your support. Chapter 4699. Don't be impatient, don't be impatient. Xiao Hua smiled faintly and waved his hand, saying, Regarding this matter, this old man has another opinion. Listen to me first. Oh, Dragon Teacher Xiao, please speak. Ao Su was stunned for a second, then his gaze swept over Jiang Hong as if he had already understood something. During the Jade Lake Conference, the various forces venerables have already decided that our Tao Gate will set up a defense against the world-destroying strange insects, preventing them from harassing the West Sea, and preventing them from attacking the West Sea Dragon Palace. Xiaohua said. On that day, the Dragon Hall's second elder also had the intention to invite this old man to oversee the West Sea Dragon Palace. But this old man is a Tao Gate cultivator. How can I oversee the Dragon Palace? Therefore, before the second elder could say anything, this old man had already refused. Previously, this old man had thought that our Fortune Gate's disciples only needed to eliminate the strange insects at the West Sea's border, and did not need to care about the West Sea Dragon Palace's matters, avoiding any disputes with the West Sea Dragon Palace's sea tribes. However, through this matter, this old man discovered that the West Sea Dragon Palace is not stable because the Dragon Palace's lord is not present, and various forces are trying to gain benefits in the West Sea. Just look at Ao Xian, who has already married into the Saint River's dragon tribe, but she actually led a foreign force to kill her two brothers. That Thousand Beast Sacred Ground's Crimson Ground River Dragon tribe has also extended their hands to the Dragon Palace. Dragon Unveil Ao Xiang, such a chaotic West Sea Dragon Palace has already become an unstable rear. How can our Fortune Gate's disciples be at ease to resist the strange insects? Who can guarantee that when our Fortune Gate's disciples are fighting a bloody battle, some unknown force will not stab us in the back? Who could guarantee that the already murky waters of the West Sea wouldn't become even more murky and blood wouldn't seep in? And if they can't? Then, this old man feels that our Fortune Gate should be responsible for our disciples, our Fortune Gate should be responsible for our Fortune Gate's rear, and our Fortune Gate should be responsible for the West Sea's peace and stability. Ao Su thoughtfully looked at Ao Xiang and asked, Ao Xiang, can you guarantee this? I. Ao Xiang was tongue-tied. How could he dare to guarantee this? Facing Ao Ying and Ao Yu, who were killed because of their schemes, even if the Lord of the East Sea was here, he could not guarantee, right? Dragon teacher, what do you mean? Ao Su asked. My Fortune Gate wants to send a disciple to guard the West Sea Dragon Palace. Xiaohua said indifferently. This disciple will not comment on any of the affairs of the West Sea Dragon Palace, nor will he interfere with any of the internal affairs of the West Sea Dragon Palace. But he has the right to know everything that happens in the West Sea Dragon Palace, and he has the right to pass on any information that is harmful to our Fortune Gate. The Fortune Gate's disciples are humans after all. Isn't it inappropriate for them to guard the West Sea Dragon Palace? Ao Su pondered for a moment, and intentionally sent the topic into Xiaohua's hands. He said, Master Xiao, please understand. Haha, rest assured, Dragon Unveil. Xiaohua laughed. There are also members of the Dragon clan among my Fortune Gate's disciples. As he said, Xiaohua waved his hand and said, Jiang Hong, you come over. Yes, master. Jiang Hong was overjoyed. She hurriedly stepped forward and bowed. Currently, all matters related to my Fortune Gate are being handled by this old man's disciple, Lu Yi, Xiaohua said to Ao Su. And Jiang Hong is Lu Yi's wife. She is a member of the Dragon clan, and before marrying into my Fortune Gate she was the little princess of the Holy Paradise River. This old man has decided that she will represent my Fortune Gate to guard the West Sea Dragon Palace. And Ao Su nodded slightly and smiled. This junior has long heard that the Holy Paradise River's Dragon clan has produced an outstanding commander, but I didn't expect this Dragon clan member to have already married into the Fortune Gate. Master Zhao's arrangement is wonderful. Jiang Hong is a member of the Dragon clan, and she is also the wife of the Fortune Gate's sect chief's disciple. This junior has no objections. However, this junior cannot make the decision on this matter. I need to send a message to the Dragon Island, and senior can go to the Dragon Island to explain everything. As for the East Sea Dragon Palace, Crown Prince needs to send a message. Yes, this junior will report to Royal Father. Ao Xiang hurriedly stood up and answered. But Royal Father does not. Jiang Hong glanced at Xiaohua and smiled faintly. She said to Ao Xiang, I'm afraid Crown Prince has misheard. My sect chief has decided to let me guard the West Sea Dragon Palace on behalf of the Fortune Gate. This is my Fortune Gate's decision. You only need to send a message. As for how the East Sea Dragon King will respond, that is your East Sea Dragon Palace's matter, and has nothing to do with my Fortune Gate. AI, as expected of the Dragon Clan with the ambition to rule the West Sea Dragon Palace. Xiaohua sighed. Jiang Hong's words were ingenious and dignified. If Xiaohua had said these words, it would be considered bullying the weak. But if Jiang Hong said these words, not only would it raise the Fortune Gate's prestige, it would also establish Jiang Hong's foundation in the West Sea Dragon Palace. That's right, this old man has the same intention, Xiaohua said to Eosu. Is the transmission array to the Dragon Island ready? This old man's matter is 100 times more important than the West Sea Dragon Palace's internal strife. It cannot be delayed. Eosu was very happy to see Xiaohua inserting his forces into the West Sea Dragon Palace without shedding a drop of blood, because the Dragon Island had originally planned to let Xiaohua restrain the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. Moreover, he also understood that even if the East Sea Dragon Palace's lord received this news, not to mention that what was done could not be undone, even if Xiaohua waited for his decision, Eosu would have to consider the consequences of not letting Jiang Hong enter the West Sea Dragon Palace. Because the Fortune Gate's disciples could find an excuse at any time, saying that the West Sea Dragon Palace's situation would affect their safety. At that time, if the Fortune Gate forced their way into the West Sea Dragon Palace, it would not only be the West Sea Dragon Palace that would lose face, but also the East Sea Dragon Palace's reputation. Therefore, Eosu believed that the East Sea Dragon Palace would make a wise choice and accept the fact that Jiang Hong was overseeing the West Sea Dragon Palace. Therefore, Eosu hurriedly smiled and said, Dragon Teacher Xiao, please wait a moment. The transmission array to the Dragon Island is not that easy to set up. On one hand, the transmission array needs to be activated, and on the other hand, we need to obtain the Dragon Island's approval through a transmission array. So troublesome. Xiaohua frowned and grumbled in displeasure. This matter involves my Dragon Island's defense, so I ask for Dragon Teacher Zhao's forgiveness. Eosu carefully explained. At this time, Xiaohua raised his head again, looking outside the West Sea Dragon Palace, and said with a smile, He came just in time. Looks like he should also make a trip to the Dragon Island. Who? Eosu was slightly taken aback, somewhat puzzled, and wanted to release his spiritual sense. Woo! At this time, outside the West Sea Dragon Palace, a kind of raging dragon's might came from the sea, instantly enveloping the entire main hall, and even the entire Dragon Palace. A kind of indescribable complex feeling emerged from the bottom of Eosu and the other dragons' hearts, whether it was fear, respect, or worship. Eosu's heart skipped a beat, and he hurriedly flew up from the jade pillar, exclaiming in surprise, Could it be? Boom, boom, boom! The originally quiet jade-like seawater suddenly emitted a rumbling sound. Layer after layer of dragon tattoos mysteriously appeared in every inch of the seawater. None of the dragon tribe members could remain still. Some of them could not endure the heavy pressure of the dragon's might, and crawled on the ground. Some of them trembled and forcefully supported themselves. Even Eosu curled up his dragon tail, not daring to reveal his dragon body under the dragon's might. His surprise was mixed with bitterness. He understood that this was a kind of natural suppression that a high-grade dragon instinctively had over a low-grade dragon, and it was not something that could be resisted by any strength. Hee, fellow Taoist Yun! Xiaohua patted the crimson dragon crown on top of his head. In an instant, its brilliance spread across the entire West Sea Dragon Palace, slightly reducing the invincible dragon's might. After that, he flew out of the main hall, laughed, and said, You should restrain your dragon's might a little. Otherwise, before you can swim to the West Sea Dragon Palace, your dragon descendants will all turn into sieves. Upon hearing Xiaohua's voice, a dignified voice echoed out from the sea. Even if I restrain my dragon's might, they will still not be able to stand in front of me. Along with the voice, the dragon's might retracted like a tidal wave. In the distance, a golden light flickered, and a few flaky shadows emerged from the water. When they landed in front of Xiao Hua, they rushed to a spot and transformed into a fist-sized ball of light. Asterisk swoosh. Asterisk right after the ball of light was formed, it exploded noiselessly, revealing a huge dragon like an ink brush. Wasn't he Reverend Yun? Reverend Yun was right. Although he had retracted his dragon's might, the unparalleled upper-grade pressure still came from the hearts of Ao Su and the other dragons. Their bodies were still trembling, and they could not remain calm. Nevertheless, Ao Su dared not to be negligent. He forced himself to endure the pressure, then raised his dragon head respectfully, and cried out, "Junior Ao Su, the second elder of the Dragon Palace, offers greetings, Reverend Yun." Reverend Yun raised his dragon head and coiled his dragon body. Immediately, a golden light flickered again, and Reverend Yun transformed into his human form. The innate upper-grade pressure immediately vanished. Then, he raised his hand and said, "You may rise, thank you, Reverend." Ao Su felt as if a heavy burden had been lifted off his mind. He hastily transformed into his human form and answered with a flattering smile. Then, the group of dragons hurriedly bowed and greeted him. Reverend Yun looked at them from time to time and nodded. "Fellow Taoist Yun, please take a seat," Xiaohua said smilingly. "In this dragon palace, I can never be compared with you. Fellow Taoist, you are too polite." Reverend Yun nodded slightly and sat down on the seat of honor. Xiaohua, Ao Su, and the others sat beside him. "Fellow Taoist Yun, you're quite fast." Xiaohua smiled and said, "I thought you wouldn't be able to make it to the Dragon Island." Reverend Yun looked around and asked, "Didn't Ao Shi forbid our Fortune Gate from meddling with the West Ocean Dragon Palace? Why did fellow Taoist touch his reverse scale?" "Hee, fellow Taoist, you may not know, but this is what happened." Xiaohua told Reverend Yun the whole story in front of Ao Su, and finally said, "I was worried that something might happen to the West Ocean Dragon Palace again, so I sent Jiang Hong to guard the palace." Author's note: Xianxia combat strength list again. Then, let's fight! Fellow Taoists who like this book, please subscribe to it at Qidian. Give me a monthly vote, a recommendation vote, a bookmark, or a tip. Thank you for all your support. Chapter 4700. "Oh, so that's how it is." Reverend Yun nodded and said, "Fellow Taoist Xiao, 40% of our Fortune Gate's disciples have entered the West Ocean, and are looking for a place to settle down. However, they are not familiar with the West Ocean, and haven't found a suitable island. That's why I thought of coming to the West Ocean Dragon Palace to ask." "Senior," Ao Su hurriedly said, "Junior knows of a blessed land in the depths of the West Ocean. The heaven and earth energy there is abundant, and is suitable to be the Fortune Gate's foundation. If Senior needs it, Junior can point it out to you." "Oh? Where is it?" Reverend Yun raised his head and asked. Ao Su quickly took out a dragon shell and handed it over to Reverend Yun. "Senior, please take a look." "I won't take a look." Reverend Yun took the dragon shell and handed it over to Jiang Hong. "Jiang Hong, take a look. If it's suitable, let me send a message to Lu Yi. He's worried about it." "Yes, disciple understands," Jiang Hong answered and took the dragon shell. She released her yuan sense to check it, and a joyful expression emerged on her face. Then she hurried away. After Jiang Hong left, another dragon general swam in and said respectfully, "Seniors, the teleportation channel to the Dragon Island is ready." "Good." Xiaohua rose to his feet and said smilingly, "Fellow Taoist Yun, as the saying goes, it's better to come at the right time than to come at the right time. Come with me to the Dragon Island." "All right." Reverend Yun nodded and rose to his feet. Ao Su also hurried ahead of Reverend Yun and Xiaohua, leading the man and dragon to the back palace of the West Ocean Dragon Palace. Judging from his eagerness, he did not look like a second elder of the Dragon Palace. Xiaohua had used the teleportation formation of the West Ocean Dragon Palace before, so he was not unfamiliar with it. Inside a palace that was several thousand feet in size, black and white light surged out like waves. Xiao Hua knew that this was the teleportation formation of the West Ocean Dragon Palace. When the group of dragons in bright armor saw Xiao Hua and the others coming over, they all bowed and saluted, opening the door of the hall. Xiao Hua flew into the main hall and saw a huge space. This space was filled with green seawater. At this moment, the seawater outside the space was still like a crystal, but in the center of the space, all the seawater was rotating at an extremely fast speed. This rotation seemed to have no rules. Some water flowed from the inside to the outside, some flowed from the outside to the inside, and some flowed from the outside to the inside. There were also some flowed like ribbons that wound around the surroundings, and as these flowed, a black and white brilliance shone out from the seawater. Ao Su landed at the edge of the space. He glanced at the huge rotation and said in a low voice, "Xiao Longshi, Senior Kui, please wait for a moment. Wait for me to open the teleportation channel and send the two of you to Dragon Island." As he spoke, Ao Su took out a golden token from the long bay. This token was in the shape of a dragon, and thumb-sized dragon patterns were engraved on it. Ao Su spat out a mouthful of dragon breath onto the token, and the dragon seemed to come alive, falling towards the black and white spinning. Boom! That token fell into the spinning, and a huge roar sounded everywhere. Then Xiao Hua saw countless light shadows were born from the spinning like flood dragons, and rushed into the void while hissing. After a few breaths, the void also began to tremble. Tens of thousands of heaven and earth yuan-chi crashed into the spinning light shadows, and waves of ghostly wails and wolf-like strange sounds sounded. As the heaven and earth yuan-chi crashed in, the entire spinning began to converge. Streaks of light shadows shuttled back and forth in the main hall like flying swords, and layers of obscure waves also spread around the main hall. Finally, with a whimper, the huge spinning disappeared, and a strange whirlpool appeared in the middle of the main hall. This whirlpool was black and white, and its shape was different from all directions. All the light shadows were torn into strange shapes inside the whirlpool, and these light shadows fell into the center of the whirlpool, forming an extremely dazzling dragon-shaped brilliance. Senior Yun Xiaolongshi, Ao Su said respectfully when he saw the teleportation tunnel was completed. The teleportation tunnel to Dragon Island has been opened. Previously, when I sent a message to the elders of Dragon Palace, I only told them that Xiaolongshi was going there, and I did not mention Senior Yun. It's too late to send a message now. Therefore, if Dragon Island has neglected you in any way, please forgive us, Senior Yun. Don't worry about it. Reverend Yun waved his hand, controlling his dragon body to rush into the dragon-shaped brilliance at the center of the whirlpool. Xiao Hua nodded at Ao Su, then followed him into the teleportation tunnel. As soon as Reverend Yun entered the whirlpool, a powerful suction force came from the brilliance and enveloped him. When he flew in with the suction force, the brilliance expanded rapidly, and when the dragon-shaped brilliance looked similar to Reverend Yun's, the dragon-shaped brilliance was torn apart. Layers of black and white light shadows rushed into the void, forming a huge tunnel. The tunnel was filled with dragon runes, and black and white light spots reflected in it, looking like huge dragon scales. When Reverend Yun's dragon body rushed into the tunnel, his entire body was stretched and twisted, stretching towards the other end of the tunnel. Xiao Hua followed Reverend Yun into the tunnel, and the same thing happened to him as well. At an unknown location at the bottom of the ocean, a dragon was glinting brightly, driving away the surrounding darkness. In front of the dragon were a dozen dragon generals, who were nervously looking at a huge space before them. There was no light in the space, but strangely, there were some unknown ripples that came and went from time to time, violently lashing at the seawater in the space. Amidst the roaring and roaring of the seawater, the entire space looked like a giant beast. Whoop! Suddenly, a shrill cry rang out from the space. Even though they were in the seawater, they could still hear it very clearly. Along with the cry, one figure after another began to shoot out from the darkness like fireflies. "He's coming! He's coming!" The dragon at the front cried out in a low voice, waving his dragon claw and saying, "Hurry up! Dragon Master Xiao will be here soon!" As the dragon cried out in a low voice, the seawater in the space suddenly began to roll and roll, forming another huge whirlpool in the blink of an eye. Numerous huge threads of light were seen twisting and flowing in the whirlpool, brightening up the seawater within several hundred miles. Rumble! A loud boom rang out from the center of the whirlpool, and it began to collapse at an incredible speed. A grayish-white mist overflowed from the void, and then a very powerful dragon pressure came seeping out from it. This? The group of dragons began to tremble as they looked at each other in dismay. They slowly coiled up their gigantic dragon bodies to resist the terrifying dragon might. They couldn't understand how Xiao Longshi could possess such a terrifying dragon might. Roar! An enormous dragon shadow twisted and rushed out from the whirlpool, wheeling in front of the group of dragons for a brief moment before finally condensing into a mighty dragon standing proudly amidst the seawater. No, that's not right. It's Reverend Yun? The group of dragons was startled, then suddenly realized who it was. When Reverend Yun retracted the dragon pressure, they scrambled to prostrate themselves on the surface of the seawater, and cried out respectfully. Greetings, Senior Yun, get up! Reverend Yun stretched his dragon body and said with a loud voice, You don't have to be so courteous. Yes, Senior! The group of dragons rose to their feet respectfully. At the same time, a bright shadow flashed beside Reverend Yun. Xiao Hua's slim and tall body first twisted and turned, then he straightened up and revealed himself. Behind Xiao Hua's figure, the huge whirlpool gradually calmed down, and the light figure also gradually disappeared. But after a brief moment, the surrounding space returned to its previous tranquility. The group of dragons dared not to be negligent. They hurriedly stepped forward and bowed. Greetings, Dragon Master Xiao. Xiao Hua answered, then raised his head and looked at Long Yen. So, this place is not Dragon Island? Yes, Dragon Master Xiao. The leading dragon hastily explained. This is the teleportation tunnel used by the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas to Dragon Island. It is very close to Dragon Island. Seniors, please board Long Yen. It will take you less than an hour to reach Dragon Island. All right. Xiao Hua nodded, then gave Reverend Yin a look and said, Let's board Long Yen. It looks like the Dragon Palace doesn't want you and me to know the location of Dragon Island. Dragon Master Xiao, you misunderstood us. Upon hearing Xiao Hua's words, the dragon was taken aback. He quickly bowed and said, It's not that the elders don't want seniors to know the location of Dragon Island, but if we want to enter Dragon Island, we have to rely on Long Yen. Save your explanation. Reverend Yun waved his hand and said, You just need to open Long Yen. Yes, Senior Yun. The dragon moved his body and led a few of the other dragons to open Long Yen, while the rest of the dragons continued to surround the calmed space, keeping their guard up. As soon as Xiao Hua and Reverend Yun entered Long Yen, the Long Yen shook violently. Layers of light rose from the top of Long Yen's head, rushing toward its tail like a stream of spring water. After a few rounds of impact, the light transformed into streams of light and plunged into the boundless ocean, plunging the entire unknown space back into the darkness of the seabed. Xiao Hua's cultivation base had improved by leaps and bounds compared to when he first set foot on Dragon Island. Therefore, the dragon formation of Long Yen could no longer restrict his divine will. However, Xiao Hua only released his divine will when Long Yen was activated. After giving it a brief glance, he retracted his divine will and only talked to Reverend Yun. Reverend Yun told him everything that happened after Xiao Hua left Soaring Dragon Mountain Range. In the end, Xiao Hua waved his hand and sealed the surrounding space. Fellow Taoist, I have bad news. After that, Xiao Hua told Reverend Yun about the 4 continents, and said with a wry smile, Things have greatly exceeded my expectations. The 3 continents do not have any passageways that lead to other realms, and there is an immortal realm array separating the 4 continents. If we want to kill Mayfly, we have to destroy this immortal realm array. Fellow Taoist, you don't have to say anything. Reverend Yun smiled and answered, Fellow Taoist, you can make the decision on this matter. When you need me, just let me know. I think, even if it is an immortal realm array, I can still break it with my Panga axe. P.S. Here we are again, the Xianxia combat strength list. Then, let's fight. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please subscribe to it at Qidian, vote for it, give it a recommendation vote, collect it, tip it, and thank you for all your support. Chapter 4701. Fellow Taoist, you're being too optimistic. Xiaohua shook his head helplessly and explained. When I found out about the immortal formation, the first thing I thought of was your Panga axe. But now, there are two difficulties. First, we don't know where the immortal formation is. It's too advanced. Even people as powerful as the Golden-Winged Roc and the Vairocana revered sage think the West Ocean is the edge of the world. How can we find it? Second, even if we do find the immortal formation, do you think your strength is stronger than Senior Su Ji and Fairy Xingyu? No. Reverend Yun shook his head without hesitation. Moreover, fellow Taoists should also understand that the same magic treasure in the hands of different cultivators will have different effects. Although you have mastered the Panga axe, you only have the power to strike once. It's far from being able to split the immortal formation. Reverend Yun frowned and said with a wry smile, Fellow Taoist, you don't seem to have any confidence. Fellow Taoist, you're right. Xiaohua said honestly. I'm in a mess now, and I don't know what to do. I'm like an ant on a hot pan. Oh, I'm stronger than an ant, because I know I'm on a hot pan, and I'm trying my best to find a way out. A way seems to be hard to find, Reverend Yun said thoughtfully. Because the nests of ants like Thunder Temple, Immortal Palace, Dragon Island, and Great Sage Temple are all on this hot pan. They never know that they're on a hot pan. You can think of it this way, Xiaohua explained. The 4 continents are separated by an immortal formation. This is an ancient secret. It seems that the immortal realm doesn't want the cultivators of the 4 continents to know about it. Even someone as powerful as Fairy Xingyu doesn't dare to tell Su Ji. However, under such a taboo situation, Fairy Xingyu was able to leave behind a clue. Therefore, I don't believe that the Buddhist sect, Confucian cultivators, Dragon Clan, and Demon Clan won't have some clues about their places of inheritance. Even if there are some clues, if there's no way to break the formation, it's useless. Reverend Yun shook his head. Just as fellow Taoist has said, this is an immortal formation. Even Goddess Xingyu has asked you to give up, so I'm afraid you're not strong enough to do it. Before Reverend Yun could finish his words, Xiaohua said resolutely. Where there is a will, there is a way. If it was an ordinary matter, I could slack off. However, this was the 3 rivers and 4 seas. It was the life and death of billions of creatures in the 3 continents. I dare not be negligent. Reverend Yun nodded at Xiaohua's righteous words and said, Since fellow Taoist has such an idea, I'll support it. The worst-case scenario was to fight the world-destroying ephemera to the death in the 3 continents. Others might not be able to survive, but do you think our Fortune Gates disciples, won't they have a way to survive? That is our final plan. Xiaohua laughed. A cunning rabbit has 3 burrows. How can our Fortune Gates disciples not have a way out? At worst, we can send our Fortune Gates disciples and Shao country's people to the Shenhua continent. Then, I will cultivate in seclusion and ascend, leaving this place filled with ephemera. Fellow Taoist, don't be careless. Reverend Yun suddenly tensed up and reminded. Let's not talk about whether the changes in the laws of heaven and earth will affect the Shenhua continent when you ascend. However, don't forget that the souls killed by the world-destroying ephemera cannot fall into the cycle of reincarnation. This has changed the laws of the 3 continents. When the time comes, even if you cultivate to the ascension realm, due to the changes in the laws of heaven and earth, you will not be able to ascend to the immortal world. Hiss. Xiaohua sucked in a breath of cold air, and the expression on his face changed slightly. He had not thought of this. He had been secretly delighted, thinking that he had an extra way out compared to others. In the end, if he could not resist the world-destroying ephemera, he would bring a group of disciples and as many humans as possible to ascend to the immortal world. He had not thought about the changes in the laws of heaven and earth. When Reverend Yun mentioned this, Xiaohua immediately understood. Just like what the 7-colored divine seashell had said, the world-destroying ephemera came from the upper realm. 1 or 2 of them were not a big deal. It was like a pond with 1 or 2 extra stones. No one knew what would happen, but the number of world-destroying ephemera was terrifying. If there were millions of stones in the pond, would the entire pond still be a pond? Without water, the pond would turn into a mountain. And the 3 continents occupied by the world-destroying ephemera, what would they become? The void was blocked, and the natural energy and righteous energy were devoured. How could there be a passage to ascend? A dead end, an absolute dead end. Even if they ascended, they would not be able to get out of this dead end. Xiao Hua's heart turned cold as he forcefully retorted. Fellow Taoist Xiao, don't forget that during the Star Moon Palace's lecture, there were existences who clearly stated that souls are actually a type of power. The souls that the world destruction Mayfly devoured should have had their reincarnation power devoured, which is why. While he was speaking, Xiao Hua's expression flickered. He raised his hand and removed the restrictive spell. Then, he saw a dragon flying towards them from a distance. When he saw Xiao Hua and Reverend Yun, he bowed and said, "Seniors, Dragon Island is in sight. We can enter it in half the time it takes to finish a pot of tea." "Good." Xiao Hua put away his wild thoughts and nodded. "Lead the way." "Seniors, please," said the dragon respectfully as he led Xiao Hua and Reverend Yun to the exit of Dragon Island. Rumble. Dragon Island trembled slightly and stopped. Xiao Hua and Reverend Yun flew out of Dragon Island. The 9 elders of Dragon Palace had been waiting for them in front of Dragon Island. When they saw Xiao Hua and Reverend Yun, Great Elder Aojia swung his dragon tail and flew to Reverend Yun, bowing and saying, "Greetings, Lord Divine Dragon!" "Greetings, Lord Divine Dragon!" Aoi and the other 8 elders did not dare to show any neglect. Although Reverend Yun did not unleash his dragon power, the innate pressure was still emanating from his dragon body. The other 8 elders did not seem to feel any discomfort except for Aojia, whose dragon body was trembling slightly. His dragon horn was glinting faintly as it kept washing his head and other parts of his body. When Xiao Hua saw that, he understood that Aojia had suffered a serious injury when he self-detonated a thread of his nascent divinity in the Folded Emerald Legacy realm. 200 to 300 years was not enough for him to fully recover. Therefore, he quickly gave Reverend Yun a look and gave him a signal with his eyes. Reverend Yun understood. After waving his dragon claws and bowing to the 9 elders, his body flashed with a golden light as he transformed back into his human form. Using the mystic technique of Qingqiu Mountain, he hid the high-grade dragon power into his body. Aojia and the other sect elders were greatly shocked when they saw Reverend Yun could control his dragon aura with ease. They knew very well that this dragon aura was innate, and was different from the pressure exerted by human cultivators. It was not something that any dragon could control freely. The 9 elders could not help but exchange a glance with each other. Some of the ideas they had discussed before had changed slightly. "Get up! You don't have to call me Lord Divine Dragon!" Reverend Yun waved his hand and said, "It's better to call me Reverend Yun." "Well..." Although Aojia was delighted, he showed a hesitant expression. After a while, he nodded and said, "All right, no matter what you call me, Reverend Yun is the 5-clawed Divine Dragon of Dragon Island. This is an undeniable fact." After that, he turned to Xiao Hua and said, "Welcome, Dragon Teacher Xiao, to Dragon Island. Grand Elder." Xiao Hua smiled, stepped forward and bowed to Aojia. "It's been a long time. How is Grand Elder's body?" Without the oppressive dragon power, Aojia's dragon body no longer trembled. He looked no different from an ordinary dragon. Aojia answered with a smile. "Thanks to Dragon Teacher Xiao, my body is in great condition. And to tell you the truth, I've profited from a disaster." "Ha!" At this point, Aojia stopped talking. Xiao Hua understood what he meant, and with a big smile on his face, he said, "Congratulations, Grand Elder! I've been cultivating for so many years, and there's nothing to be happy about. Instead, I should congratulate Dragon Teacher Xiao and Reverend Yun." Although Aojia was also grinning from ear to ear, he still said with emotion, It's only been 300 years, but the two of you have gone from unknown cultivators to supreme cultivators of our 3 continents in one fell swoop. This is definitely an unparalleled miracle in the records of the human and dragon races. It was no wonder that Aojia was so moved. The last time Xiaohua came to Dragon Island, he was only at the 4th or 5th grade of elemental energy. He only came to Dragon Island as a descendant of the dragon bloodline to accompany him for training. In the eyes of Aojia and the other elders, Xiaohua was only a chess piece with value. And now, Xiaohua had stepped foot on Dragon Island again, and he was already the supreme cultivator of a sect. He could even be said to be the strongest person in the 3 continents. None of the 9 elders of Dragon Palace dared to neglect him, and they all came to welcome him. Who would still dare to treat him as a chess piece? And Xiaohua's magnificent transformation had only taken a mere 300 years. It had been 300 years. Aojia hadn't even recovered from his previous injury. There's a saying in Dao sect, everyone has their own fate, and others can't force it. Xiaohua smiled and didn't say much. This old man greets Dragon Master Xiao. Second Elder Aoi stepped forward with a smile and bowed. Is there any urgent matter for Dragon Master Xiao to come to Dragon Island? You and I have just met at the Jade Lake Assembly. This old man had just reported the result of the Jade Lake Assembly to the Grand Elder, and the 9 elders of Dragon Palace had just finished discussing the matter and passed the decision of Dragon Island to the various dragon clans. Today, I suddenly received news that Dragon Master Xiao is coming. This old man is really surprised. Fourth Elder Ao Ding also flew over and said with a smile. That's right, Dragon Master Xiao. When we received the message from the West Sea Dragon Palace, we only knew that Dragon Master Xiao was coming, but we didn't expect that Reverend Yun would also come. This really caught us off guard. Grand Elder Ao Jiao was even more calm. He looked at Reverend Yun and asked, could it be that Reverend Yun doesn't want to be the Fortune Gate's old master and wants to come to Dragon Palace? If so, this old man welcomes you. This old man is willing to give up the position of Grand Elder. P.S. Xianxia Battle Power List again. Then, let's fight. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please subscribe to it at Qidian. Vote for it, vote for it, vote for it, donate it, and thank you for all your support. You're tuning into the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.